What's going on, guys, and welcome to Big League Perspective. My name is Billy Pinkney, author of Passion Prevails, and my goal is simple with this show, and that's to help you become a better teammate, a better athlete, and most importantly, a better person outside of your sport. And today we're going to have Jack O'Hara on the show as our special guest. He's a content creator, entrepreneur, sportscaster, grew up playing baseball, playing multiple sports here in Jersey, and then ultimately decided that working in sports media was something that he wanted to pursue. And he's now in Las Vegas and Arizona, splitting time between those two areas and living the dream, doing his thing and finding his way post-playing career. And we're excited to have him on because he's got such a great insight. He interviews a lot of people, a lot of players, athletes, and also celebrities. So we're going to talk about some of the things that he's experienced growing up as a young athlete in high school baseball, how people interact with each other, and kind of really diving into the psychological side, the mental side of this. And when you're dealing with perspectives and outlooks, we're going to definitely be diving into how people think and what you need to do in order to have some success and make the most out of your career. So let's do it. Jack O'Hara here on Big League Perspective. It's time for you to check out the BB collection. Pick up some Billy the Batboy merch, inspirational quotes. We got faith-related merch. We got all kinds of stuff. Go check it out. The link to it is in the show notes below. We're joined by Jack O'Hara, sportscaster, content creator, entrepreneur. Man, I appreciate you joining me.
Thanks, man. That was a very simple yet very inspiring intro. I don't think anybody's ever actually introed me into a show before.
Give credit where credit's due. Get a little entrepreneur action in there. But no, man, I'd love to have you on here. It's exciting to have you. And a lot of times we have athletes on here, and we talk to athletes about the kind of perspective you need and the inspirational stories and everything like that. But you have an interesting story as well, growing up playing sports and then turning it into a career outside of the game of baseball, outside of playing as a young athlete. So I'd love to get a little bit of your backstory of playing baseball, playing sports growing up, and then realizing that, you know what, there's a career for me out there that isn't as a player, but I'm still able to be in this industry and cover the game of baseball and sports.
Yeah, Billy. I mean, I was blessed and fortunate enough to know what I wanted to be like right off the bat. I remember growing up, you grew up in Jersey. Are you Yankees or Mets?
Yankees fan right here.
Okay, this will make it 10 times easier then. Growing up, watching Michael Kay on the Yes Network, like right away, I was like, he gets paid to call New York Yankee games for a living? And I'm like looking up his net worth on like Wikipedia. I'm like, he's making a killing. And at 5 years old, all I cared about was baseball. And I'm like, oh my God, he gets to do this as a job? That's what I want to do. So from like 5 years old, in the back of my head, I'm like, I know I want to get into sportscasting, sports media, whatever it is. Growing up playing, I think everybody, as well as it was probably yours, everybody's first thinking when they're playing T-ball is like, I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player. Or football player, basketball, whatever. You think you're going to be a pro athlete when you're playing when you're 5, 10, even like 15 years old. I still have friends at the age of 25, 26 that think that they're going to make it even though they've been on it since high school. It's ridiculous. I went to college with people that are like, yeah, I tore my MCL in rec basketball. I'm going to have to get that checked out. And I'm like, dude, just hang it up. It's over. Like, growing up playing, it's like everybody's like, I want to be Alex Rodriguez. I think that's who I like modeled my swing after growing up. I'm like, I'm going to be A-Rod. I'm going to be Mark Teixeira. Obviously, we were fortunate enough to have Derek Jeter as our shortstop growing up. Just like the class act human being, let alone baseball player and 5-time World Series champion. But I knew probably freshman, sophomore year in high school, like this is probably the end of the line after my senior year. People were getting stronger. People were getting faster. I just didn't really have it in me. I'm like, was on the bench. Like I was a platoon guy. I was like defensive replacement on the varsity team. Anybody that sees this and knows me is going to be like, yeah, dude, he sucked towards the end. Was hitting like under 200 in high school. For anybody that's played high school baseball, everybody should be hitting like 350 and above. So like at the end, I really didn't care, but I was on the bench knowing, all right, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a journalism degree. I'm going to become a sportscaster for my school, try to get internships. So like I remember being on the bench in high school just calling the games to myself and just having fun with the other guys on the bench, like the freshmen and sophomores that were on varsity, just like trying to make people laugh, just like calling games by myself, making fun of it. Because I'm like, I already had to have it down. Like Michael K's mimicked broadcast, like I have it down. So when I had my first opportunity in play-by-play, I had an opportunity in the California Collegiate Summer League in 2018, my first year in school. Got to spend the entire summer in Los Angeles, rent-free, living with someone. It was just like a dream. And we got to call over 100 games. It was just me. I was the only broadcaster called over 100 games. And just I had it down. Like people were like, "Have you done this before?" And I'm like, "No." Like, and if you go back and listen to it, I was monotone as hell. Like obviously, I was a kid doing it, didn't know what I was doing, but I had the process down. I had the system down because Michael K laid the groundwork for me for 20 years. So I've been fortunate enough to know what I wanted to do at a young age. Now I'm just continuing to progress and figure out, how to mold it into a career financially.
It's funny because we have some similar stories right there, and just realizing over time that my skill level really isn't getting to that point where you'd be able to play professional baseball. And I was in the dugout with professional guys, and I was like, man, I'm not hitting a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. That's just not going to happen. And you find other ways that you can stay involved with the game or somehow get to that next level. Was that difficult for you mentally, deciding that coming to that reality, it probably isn't going to happen for me playing the sport professionally?
Honestly, no. And that's probably not an answer that would be valuable for your audience, just because I feel like I knew, like I said early on, that I'm like, I know what plan B is, and I'm okay with that. I can honestly say from the time that I stopped playing baseball my senior year till now, Billy, that I have not even picked up a bat and tried to do anything. I haven't played in any rec leagues. Haven't tried to relive the dream and tried to show people I still have plenty left in the tank. Just didn't do it. We're honestly, and you've probably felt this too as a content creator, and I hope this can relate to some young athletes out there as well, trying to figure out if it's still something that they want to do and pursue, because it gets tough. It becomes that crossroads where you have to figure out, okay, long term, is this going to set me up for success personally, not just professionally? As a content creator, dude, it's such a saturated market. There's probably times where you're like, is this just going to be something I could afford to do in the future? Or is this something I'm not cut out for? We before we hopped on this, we were talking about the algorithm of social media and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. It's like some content gets pushed to the moon while other content just dies in the grass. And it's all good content, but for whatever reason, some of it hits, some of it doesn't. So it kind of plays a doubt in your mind of am I truly good at this? Should I pick a different profession? Should I start planning plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E? When really it's if you have a good support group who knows how much you've put into it and sees how much potential there is in it, I think you just keep going with it and you roll with the punches as they come, because the second you start to doubt yourself and think maybe I'm not cut out for this, someone comments on your page, someone DMs you, someone reaches out to you that you're like, oh my God, I grew up watching them. They actually think I'm quality at this. And it reminds you that I am good at this. For whatever reason, it's not my time. I think everything happens in due time, not on our time, maybe on God's time. But it'll happen as long as you keep progressing and you keep putting your foot down, keep putting your foot on the gas. The sky's going to be the limit for anybody. You just can't quit. I think the average content creator and the average podcaster posts 7 clips or 7 episodes before they quit. And they're just this isn't cut out for me. Where you and I have been doing this for years on end now. You just don't stop. And I think when you reach that crossroads, if you're a young athlete listening to this, it's have a plan B just in case, but go until the wheels fall off. Go until you determine in your mind, okay, nobody's going to sign me. Nope. There's no schools coming after me. All the schools that I've gone after have told me that it's done. But until you get to that point, never give up.
Yeah. It's funny because earlier on when I was playing baseball, I could probably say that I couldn't stop playing. That was almost my identity. That was who I was, right? Billy, he plays baseball all the time. But then as I got a little bit older, first of all, I realized that wasn't the case, right? You have an identity that, it isn't attached to your sport. You have people who you impact outside of the game and all that. But at the same time, I started finding other things I like to do outside of the game I played. And I decided to create content, and I was spending time with friends and just doing other things. And then a lot of times people they get too attached to their sport in a way that's unhealthy, and that could be dangerous sometimes. You want to be able to love what you do and love your sport and all that, but if you're not able to separate sports and life in some way, that can be a little dangerous. Did you ever have experiences with that?
I'll tell you what my experience was with that, but I want to ask you a question first. When was it for you when you were able to separate that specifically? Like what year?
You know what? It's funny because I loved playing growing up in Little League. And then I would say once I got to high school, and that was honestly the inspiration behind my book that I published, because I didn't have a lot of fun in high school playing. I had coaches who didn't treat us well. It was becoming a job. Mentally, it was draining. And that's when I started to ramp up the content more. I was working for the Jackals. I had more fun working for the professional team than playing myself. So that was really the spark there. And there were summer ball games in high school. I was like, I'm not going to those games. I don't want to play. I'd rather just be around the guys who are treating me well. I'm not playing myself, but I'm able to support a group of guys who are trying to do something pretty cool, win a championship, and I'm able to just be in the dugout and learn from them. So I felt like there was more value coming from that. And I think that's what really inspired me to, I'm going to enjoy playing the game. And I even played in college, played club ball, and that was so much fun just to round out my baseball career. But now that I'm not playing anymore over the past few months, I haven't picked up a ball. I'd love to play catch, here and there, but I really, it's not like I have such an itch where it's like my identity is attached to it and I feel like I'm not the same person. Because you found other things you like. You're able to just do other things that you like to do, and you're not attached and lumped right into that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that like growing up. I would say like probably around like the 18-year, 19-year, 20-year mark, where like, okay, there's more to life than this. Because like as a kid, that's all you had. You had school, you had your friends, you had the sports that you played. Um, Whereas when you get older, it's like, okay, now I got to get a job. What career do I want to get into now that baseball really hasn't panned out for whatever reason? Some people really have career ending injuries. Some people just flat out, like me, weren't good enough to get to the next level. And like, I realized that at a young age. I'm like, time's coming up soon. And to your credit, it's like it got to a point where it really wasn't fun anymore because whether it be like certain people on the team you didn't get along with, or because that's just like anything else. If you're on a team for like a job, like working for a company, it's like there's going to be people you don't like to work with. Some people that just like big league you. That was always the thing. Like juniors and seniors, it was just like almost their job to big league the sophomore and freshman, right? Like you're supposed to like be there and be a leader and lead by example, but sometimes that really wasn't always the case. I could tell you dozens of high school stories of like what went wrong and some locker room stuff. But like there comes a time where it's like, and I think that comes for everybody. Like this could come for us in content creation where it's just like, okay, the Lord has spoken. I've thrown the kitchen sink at this for the last decade. Maybe it's not working out. And then you're just forced to get into something else, right? We hope that that's not the case. But like it comes to a time where maybe like you get to a point where like absolutely nothing else is working. I've thrown everything I have had into this, all my blood, sweat, tears, equity, everything. Something else, and you're forced to start something else. Like there's a lot of athletes out there that were like, look at like Joe Theismann back in the day. In the prime of his playing career, his career was just upended due to one snap, one play, right? And you kind of have to figure it out, you know. A lot of pro wrestlers have to end their careers due to like neck injuries and concussions. Football players, boxers, like you have to figure it out. Like you have to have a life outside of it. I think you saw that with like Kobe Bryant, who just had a business sense even when he was playing. To throw like a basketball analogy out there, like the dude knew what his next steps were, even though he still probably had like 10, 15 years left. Like he had everything kind of drawn out while he was playing. By the time he retired, the dude won an Oscar his first 2 years into retirement. Most people who get into acting and screenwriting and screenplays aren't fortunate enough to even be nominated for an Oscar. And this athlete comes out of nowhere and wins an Oscar his first time ever putting together a feature film, right? And so it's like as long as like you have a set plan, like you have to be a well-rounded human being, right? Like you can't just have one thing going for you. Like in content creation, okay, we have a camera, we have a phone, we have B-roll. What are we going to do with it? But like you can be creative with that. What are you going to, post about? What are you going to make content about? It could be sports, it could be music, it could be business, it could be how to, scale your business, real estate, solar, like I mentioned before. Um, Automation is huge, right? Like it could be anything. Um, just be a well-rounded person. The more well-rounded you are, the more people you're going to meet, and the more you're going to not only introduce yourself to people that could reshape your mindset, but also opportunities that you didn't think were possible that you just might fall in love with.
Right. No, absolutely. I like to go back to what you were saying too about teammates because when I was playing growing up at certain levels, you experience some of that where you have some teammates who maybe just don't get it. They don't have that same EQ, the same maturity mentally. And I'm guessing that you were somebody who was more mature at a younger age and treated people pretty well when they were younger. So, and how would you describe the how people can act when they're younger? Because I'm sure we have some listeners, some young kids who are playing baseball and they're not really enjoying the time with some of their teammates. Maybe they're giving them a little bit of a hard time.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I still am trying to understand the way some people acted. And you're right. I was like the total grandpa of the roster. Just like, what's like the next thing on their agenda? What are you doing this weekend? Like, how's the girlfriend? Or like some people are just like there to outshine everybody else on the field. Like we had some guys who would just treat like I said, just big league you because they thought they were better than everybody else, right? Like especially people on the pitching staff who like played one game out of the week. Like they wouldn't talk to freshmen or sophomore because they didn't think that they were in the same league as them, right? It's like a typical high school popular kid versus nerd thing. Like some people just didn't treat people right just because they thought they were better. Like no, everybody, as far as I'm concerned, until you prove me otherwise, is equal on the same wavelength as a human being as everybody else. Like until you prove otherwise, things come out, things happen. But there's just a lot of like I was fortunate enough to have great captains when I played on the varsity baseball team, but then there were other people who were supposed to be leading by example that were just egomaniacs. To this day, I think they're still trying to figure out how to put their ego. They're just like, and those are some of the kids that I was mentioning earlier that still haven't let it go. Like, yeah, I'm going to pitch for the Mets one day. It's like you're 25 playing rec baseball because you can't let it go and you can't figure out what's next for your life.
No, 100%. And I feel like part of this, one of the phrases that we have here with Big League Perspective is create your own version of cool. Like you want to stand out. You don't want to just fit in all the time. And in order to do what we're doing too, you're asking to, put yourself out there. You're going ahead and you're putting content out there and you don't know who's going to see it. You don't know what's going to happen, but you're purposely standing out from the rest. So how would you describe deciding that, you know what? I'm not meant to just go ahead and fit in with everybody else, go with the flow and just not really seek something more. I'm going to go ahead and stand out and do what I can to create my own version of cool and what I think is what I'm meant to do here on earth.
That is a loaded question, Billy. I think internally and subconsciously, everybody already knows who they are, especially at a young age. People might be pressured into acting a certain way to impress certain people. I think it was like a Shaquille O'Neal quote that said like Jay-Z, I don't know, one of those guys who said that we all make money that we don't need to impress people that like don't really matter. Something along those lines. I'm sure you saw it, but like just be you at the end of the day. Everybody like internally who you are, what you're capable of. Just be confident in who you are, and I think that'll resonate with a lot of people, right? I mean, you see it with some of like the biggest pro athletes. Like my favorite baseball player growing up on the New York Yankees was a guy you probably know, Nick Swisher. Nick Swisher is not a Hall of Fame baseball player, not even in the top 500 players of all time. He's still a good Major League Baseball player, don't get me wrong, but like his energy to this day is unmatched, in my opinion, from what I saw. There were a lot of, David Ortiz has always had high energy, most clutch hitter in the history of the Boston Red Sox. There's a lot of people with high energy. For whatever reason, he just like the second he came in, changed the whole environment of that Yankee clubhouse because it was the Jeters, it was the Posadas, it was the Pettits, it was the Riveras, and though that they're all class act individuals, Billy, I think there was a sense of like we've been to the top of the mountain 4 times already. All of you should be listening to us, acting the way we should act. And I'm going to use that analogy just because everybody can relate to that. That's a Yankee fan in New Jersey, right? And then that year, Nick Swisher came along. Really didn't have that same mentality and energy that Jeter, Posada, Pettit, and Rivera had, but he wanted to win. CC Sabathia came in, different energy, different style, but he wanted to win. AJ Burnett, I'll throw in there too, because he was all over the place, right? Had all the talent in the world, but he was all over the place mentally. He wanted to win. I think if you just bring your specific energy, your specific personality, your specific style into anything over time, as long as I'll the phrase I'll use for that is rattle the cages. Like, don't just blend in. Like, rattle the cages, being yourself, because eventually that'll resonate with a lot of people. Probably won't happen over the night, especially in high school. High school is a tough time for everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're like popular. I don't care if you're nerdy. I don't care if you're a jock. I don't care prom queen, prom king. I don't care. Like, you're all struggling mentally. Your bodies are changing. You're going through things. Like, you're deciding where you want to be in your life, right? It's not an easy time. So just be yourself, and I think that goes a long way with people because that's what everybody wants to do at the end of the day is be themselves and be appreciated and acknowledged for it.
I feel like we see that a lot now with the Yankees too. You look at Juan Soto, Marcus Stroman, Verdugo, guys like that who are just coming in here, being their unique selves, and then so far only a couple series in, putting up pretty good numbers, 6-1 record. So, I mean, did you ever experience that where it was a little bit difficult to be yourself in certain environments or just do what you should be doing, even though there might be some pushback by other people?
Yes and no. I feel like I from the get go, I was always an introvert growing up. Very quiet, just kind of sit back, listen to people. Not because I was shy. People always said I was shy. It always pissed me off, Billy. I was a very quiet person because I was just like analyzing everything from a young age. Like you talk about that maturity, it's like I was able to determine like, okay, that kid still has a lot of maturing to do. He's just acting like a fool, while other people are kind of just maybe not as confident. And I can read that off of body language and just vibes off of people. You can read that vibration. Um, I would say I never really had a problem being myself. And I was fortunate enough to have people that were like, regardless, growing up in high school, that just vibe with it. They're like, yep, that's just Jack being Jack. And I was fortunate enough to where like I really wasn't like made fun of or bullied because of it. Because there was a lot of that in high school. I think there was a lot of that in any high school, whether it was physical or just like verbally and like on social media. Um, Everybody has to deal with that at some point or another. But I never was afraid to be myself because at the end of the day, it's like the people who are going to be my friends at the end of the day are going to get this version of me and they're going to be happy with it. Because if they're not, we're not gonna mesh, and that's no fun to be around. You want to be around people that accept you for who you are, not for what certain standard is set. Whether you're an athlete or um, a politician or anything, whatever you believe in. Like this standard that you have to abide by. Like Jeter's whole thing was he was a Class A player. Mariano Rivera was a Class A player. Then Nick Swisher and CC came in and they added a personality that hadn't been really seen on any of those dynasty teams. They were outlandish. Swisher had the faux hawk. Nope, nobody did that. Burnett would come in with the walk-off celebrations, right? Like there were so many different unique things that just kind of meshed well for the first time. Like I remember Jason Giambi was kind of like that too, but it didn't really work on Derek Jeter's roster. I remember Kyle Farnsworth. His personality didn't really mesh in New York. Carl Pavano. There was just a ton of guys who came in and it just like didn't really work out the right way. We're like because I feel like they were more selfish. I could be wrong on that. Like the Giambis, the Bavanos, A-Rod early on in his career, I can honestly say was a selfish baseball player. But like when Swisher came in and CC came in and Burnett came in, they were outlandish, but the objective was the same as Jeter and all those guys. They wanted to win, so it worked. To answer your question, um, I was fortunate enough, and I hopefully that could inspire someone who's looking to come out of their shell a little bit more. Just to be yourself, and if you have to roll with the punches, high school's a bitch for everybody, dude. Like it's not easy.
I think sometimes people are intimidated by that confidence. If you're just being yourself and they're insecure, it's like they're intimidated by people who are able to be their genuine selves and aren't trying to just play the game of fitting in with the crowd.
It's tough, dude. I mean, a guy you interviewed, Adrian Beltre, you know, you can look at it from one direction or another. I remember like growing up watching clips of him. He was kind of a wild guy, and then he became the veteran presence on every roster that he played for, whether it was in Seattle, Boston for a little bit, Texas towards the end of his career. Like he was like that perfect mixture of like he's himself, but also mature in a sense of like I'm confident of who I am. I'm not going to take shit from anybody, take no prisoners type attitude, and he succeeded. And I think because he succeeded, he led by example. And I truly believe that's the only way to lead, Billy, is lead by example. Don't there's this old quote that I feel like our fathers and our grandfathers, uncles, whatever used to say, and it went along the lines of do as I say, not as I do. Like that is the most backwards bullshit I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't understand. Like you literally lead by example, be who you are, and that's just literally going to resonate with everybody. I know, like at the end of the day, success, whatever results in success, more time with family, more money, whatever success looks like for you, success resonates. But if you can succeed being yourself, I think that's going to inspire tons of millions of people, especially the youth growing up at the age of from 14 to 18 in high school.
No, 1,000% for sure. And before we wrap up, what advice would you give to your younger self? And I know you've had a lot of experiences. You've interviewed so many guests as well in the sports industry and in other industries, celebrities. Is there anything that comes to mind of after all those conversations that you would want to tell your younger self?
Ask for help. I think for the longest time, and I probably still struggle with that a little bit, where it's like humble yourself enough to know that like I'm not where I want to be. There are other people in the world that are at where I want to be. Ask them for help. Don't ask for handouts. There's a difference between handouts and hand ups, Billy, where it's just like I'm just looking to be pointed in the right direction. I think there's a lot of people out there, especially a lot of social media influencers today, right? Where we talk about wanting to get specific views, make specific amount of money, and be like, hey, look at me, look who I interviewed, whether it's like a celebrity or another influencer. Like out here in on the West Coast, there's so many influencers out there that I could just tell like they need the adulation of other people in order to deem themselves successful. Just focus on what you're focusing on. And if you have specific things that you want, go ask for help from the people that already have the specific things that you want.
Great stuff, man. Hey, before I let you go, where can people find you?
You could find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Jack O'Hara TV.
There we go. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining me. If you're a high school, college, or youth athlete, you got to check out this book, Passion Prevails, or if you know one, it would make a great gift. This book is a compilation of interviews with professional athletes, mainly baseball players, but you have coaches in here, other professionals who have had decades and decades of experience in the sport. And the main goal is this, to help inform, entertain, and give value, provide value on how to navigate your career while facing adversity, how to deal with those challenges that are inevitable, that you're gonna face throughout your career. And many kids out there don't have the proper instruction and guidance on how to navigate those challenges until they're a little bit older, until they have those experiences themselves and need to learn the hard way. So go check it out. It's filled with gems, great quotes, and messages from some of the best players in the sport of baseball. So I highly recommend it. Go check it out. It's in the show notes below. What a great chat with Jack O'Hara. A lot of great stuff from him. a lot of things pertaining to how people interact with each other and taking those lessons and applying it to your life. It really stands out with the whole thing with how people interact in high school. A lot of times high school is just a tough time for people. No matter who you are, right? If you're the popular kid, if you're not, if you're the nerd, if you're the kid who maybe plays some sports but isn't really very outgoing, you have a whole combination of people. But it's tough for everybody. Everyone's going through stuff. So maybe you're dealing with some teammates who aren't really being kind to you. Maybe you're somebody who's trying to be a leader and no one's really listening to you. Just stick with what you're doing. Be the best person you can be, the best version of yourself. Seek ways to get better. And even if people don't recognize it around you, ultimately in life, it'll pay off a whole lot. So we definitely want to thank Jack for coming on here. Go check him out for sure. He's got a lot of great content. And remember, we've got 10 perspective points here, the 10 core values of this show and what we try to bring each week with one of our guests. And number 1, your identity is not in the sport that you play. 2, be faithful to God and his plan for you. 3, prove yourself right, not others wrong. 4, you were born with a purpose, allow it to be revealed to you. 5, your teammates will remember how you treated them. And that goes for what we just spoke about in today's show. Number 6, learn from others' mistakes as if they were your own. Number 7, create your own approach if you want a different result than others. Number 8, live for each day, not the weekends. Number 9, create your own version of cool because fitting in is what losers do. And number 10, embrace your passion because passion prevails. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Big League Perspective. Please subscribe to the show here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Be sure to share with somebody. If you're a young player, share it with one of your teammates. If you're a parent, I'm sure there are young kids who you either coach or who might find some value out of this, and we will see you very soon here on the show. See you next time.